I want to show something interesting in the Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary. If you flip ahead to the S's, and if you look up the Septuagint, this is what it says. It says the Septuagint, a Greek version of the Old Testament, so called because it was the work of 70, or rather of 72 interpreters. This translation from the Hebrew is supposed to have been made in the reign and by the order of Ptolemy Philadelphus, king of Egypt, about 270 or 80 years before the birth of Christ. And then it looks like it gives a second definition, Septuagint, pertaining to the Septuagint, contained in the Greek copy of the Old Testament. Now this is what I find interesting. Right underneath this, it says, the Septuagint chronology makes 1,500 years more from the creation to Abraham than the present Hebrew copies of the Bible. I find that interesting because that means that even Noah Webster himself, back in these days, back in 1828, even they knew that the chronology in the Greek Septuagint was different than the chronology that are in the present Hebrew copies. The 1,500 years more in the Septuagint chronology. Isn't that interesting that when he gives his definition of the Septuagint, the one thing that he mentions is the chronology? Because he knows that, if that's the one thing that he's going to mention when talking about the Septuagint, then it kind of sounds to me like, this might have been a hot topic back in Noah Webster's day, back in 1828. And that might be why why that's the one thing that he mentions, is the Septuagint's chronology has 1,500 years more from the creation to Abraham than the present Hebrew copies of the Bible. Isn't it interesting that that would be the one thing that Webster would mention when talking about the Septuagint? And so this must have been talked about, must have been at least somewhat popular topic back in the 1800s. And so when people say that this issue with the Septuagint's chronology is some sort of a new idea, like, oh, never heard of that before, like, no, this isn't a new idea. This is something that apparently was something that was talked about even back in the 1800s, even back in the days of Webster. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. Look up the word Septuagint in Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary.